there, it's Watchen, your favorite executive next door, and the founder and CEO of I Choose a Ladder. And I teach ambitious Black women the unwritten rules of corporate America so that they can get as much from corporate America as they give to corporate America. And today we're going to be talking about community. A conversation that I had recently with a friend led me to realize that I've been conditioned to be more in nuclear relationship and not necessarily in community. And I know for some people you're like, that's the same thing, right? Because in community you need relationship. But what I tend to do is that even when I'm in larger groups, so I am a part of a mastermind group, I intentionally sought out a community of Black entrepreneurs when I decided to become an entrepreneur full time. And what I tend to do in those spaces, I think there are about 190 of us in the group. When I get into those large groups, as opposed to trying to get to know everybody and pouring into the community and seeing like what gets returned to me in return, I tend to find nuclear families or nuclear relationships within those communities. And I think it's because that's where I feel the most comfortable. I think I mentioned a couple of episodes back when I told you all about my little career stories that we are immigrants, right? And so when my family came here from Liberia, most of our extended family didn't live in Chicago. And so I wasn't necessarily raised in community in the traditional sense that people would think about it. I was raised in my nuclear family. So growing up, it was me and the other 5 people who lived in my household. And so I think I learned how to be in one-on-one relationship with people. And I haven't necessarily figured out how to engage when I'm in a community that is larger to be able to get the maximum impact from that. And I think what I found is that I miss meaningful connections with people because I find my little tribe, and that is the group that I stick with. And as we think about professional development and career development, it makes it really challenging to grow and to step outside of like what you already know if you aren't willing to push yourself beyond where it is that you're comfortable. And so I'm going to share a couple of things that I've learned and that I'm working through as I try to be more intentional about creating community, not only for myself, but in thinking about what I'm trying to build for I Choose a Ladder. If I don't know how to be in community, how can I then say that I want to build the most supportive community for Black women in corporate America on the internet? And so community is something that I'm going to be intentional about working on and working through. And I want to invite y'all to also do the same, thinking about your engagement, not only with the I Choose a Ladder community, but also the communities that you are a part of and how you can get and give more to those communities. So in reading up about communities and what makes someone a good community member or a useful member of a community, they say that there are 2 types of people in community. So you're either a consumer or you are a co-creator. And I think for me, I tend to be on the consumer side when it's for me and on the co-creator side when it's for business. And I want to be on the co-creator side most of the time. And the difference between that is think about the consumers as the lurkers. You know them on social media. They don't ever click on anything. They don't ever like a post. They don't ever comment, but you know they're watching because it might come up somewhere else in conversation. They don't really add much value to the immediate community, but you know that they're there and you know that they're consuming. For a lot of people, that is how they choose to engage, but I don't think that actually makes you a member of the community, right? Because community is relationship and it's a give and take. And so that is what the co-creator role is within in a community, right? For most people, that doesn't happen often. And there is a small segment of the larger group, right? So when we talk about media and stuff, it's like, what is your engagement? The people who engage are looked at as the co-creators. And I think one of the reasons that it's hard for people, especially in the social media world, right? When you join communities, whether it's a professional development community or a personal development community, is that you have to trust that you are safe to share without judgment. And in a lot of spaces where people are quick to respond first and then think later, it makes it hard for the people who are within a community to feel like I can just share a career challenge that I'm having or something that I did, a mistake that I may have made without people saying things to me or treating me like I'm less than. And so if you are someone who is in community, check in with yourself. Like, how are you engaging with the other people? Are you doing what is necessary to make others feel safe, right? And if you see that people are not feeling safe, right? They feel like every time they mention a work mistake, somebody cuts them down and nobody steps in to help or to like correct the person who behaved inappropriately. But if you are if you have issues with trust, it's going to make it really hard to form work communities that can be beneficial for you. The second thing is that you have to have a sense that others within the community either have been where you are or currently are where you are, because then you can glean some information, some value from them. If you are not somebody who shares within community, it's going to be really hard for the newer people who are just entering in different spaces or parts of their lives or chapters in their careers to feel like they're not alone. And I think one of the things that community does, one of the benefits, is that it helps to make people feel seen. It helps to make, well, a good community anyway, it helps to make them feel valued. And so if you are not willing to share, right, in a community, or you don't feel comfortable sharing, the question that I would ask you to ask yourself is, why are you still engaging in that community, right? And for me, the spaces where I feel like I consume but I don't deposit, I've had to check myself to say, hey, is it that you don't feel like you have any gifts or talents that you can share, or resources or wisdom that you can share, or are you kind of hoarding the information, right? And so make sure that if you choose to be in a community and you expect to get stuff out of it, the richer that the experience will be dependent on how much you pour into that community and how much people know you. And then I think the third thing is how vulnerable are you willing to be? Now, when my therapist would bring up vulnerability in the past, I would sweat, because I'm just like, ain't nobody got time for that, like for telling your business to people that you don't know. But what I've learned is I've started to share more on the I Choose a Ladder community and share more of my career journey, and not just the highlight reel, but the things that have, you know, kind of crushed me at times, the relationships that maybe didn't go so well, the promotions that I thought I should have gotten that I didn't get, the job opportunities maybe that I thought that I was qualified for that I didn't get, the friendships, the networks, and all of those things. The more I share honestly, and beyond just the fact sheets of like what happened, but to actually put some emotion behind it, the more connected people feel to me, and the more they're willing to share, and the richer our relationships become. And so if you are not willing to be vulnerable within a community, it's going to be really hard for you to get to know people. And we know within like networking and circles that people tend to work with and want to do things for people that they know and they like, right? And that's going to require a certain level of vulnerability from you. And so think through what are some, you know, baby steps that you can take to share a little bit more about yourself, about your career story, about your aspirations, about your dreams. Like, don't just jump off the ledge and start telling people all your business, right? Because some people have to earn the levels of access to you, right? People need to prove that they are not going to use whatever information that you share to like hurt you or cause you harm or be malicious. But there are little ways that you can dip your toe in the water to help you start to build connections with people. And then lastly, and this one I think is the hardest for me, is that you have to be open to giving and receiving. I think as Black women, we have been socialized to always be giving, where we talk about giving your all versus giving your best, right? We have been taught that you should give your all to a job, or you should give your all to a relationship. And then if those things end, there's a level of loss and devastation that's very personal, because you've given everything that you have. For me, I think that is you give your best, right? Because if you give your best, you still have stuff that's left for you, because you've not poured yourself empty. And so on the giving side, there's some work to be done there. But what I found for us as Black women, especially when it comes to work, is that we are terrible at receiving, right? Whether that's receiving compliments on a job well done, receiving accolades, receiving the spotlight. There's something about that makes us feel like maybe we don't want to, maybe it's like the imposter syndrome, where we don't want to put a light on us because we're afraid that like we might be found out, or we don't want, you know, too much attention because we don't want people to think that we are better than them. And when I say we, I'm included in that we, right? I just had a conversation, an hour-long conversation with a friend earlier this week, where we talked about the fact that I am unable to just say thank you after a compliment. Literally. Somebody will say, oh my goodness, Watchen, you killed that workshop. And I'll say, thank you, but it actually didn't take that long to put together. Or thank you, but thank you, or try to like explain it away. And just saying thank you sometimes is enough. And as you are in community with people, there are going to be people who want to do things for you, because reciprocity is a real thing. And when you deny them that opportunity to to sow a seed into your life, or to pour into you, it can be hurtful sometimes, right? People want, in the same way that we receive a level of fulfillment, or we feel good about being able to help somebody else, people also want that feeling. And so if you are going to be in community, especially as a Black woman in corporate, where it's hard to find community of people who you feel like can understand, like truly understand what it is that you're going through and what it is that you're navigating, being able to give of yourself, of your time, of your resources, but also being able to receive from the other people who are in that community is really, really important. And I think as I learn and become better at being in community, the community that I'm creating will also become richer and become better. But for you, curious to know, like, what has your experience with community been, and what does community actually mean to you? For me, for a long time, it meant my nuclear family and the 5 other people who I had traveled through life with in a very intimate way. As I've gotten older, it's expanded a bit, right? And it's forced me to grow in ways that I don't know that I'm ready for necessarily, but I know is necessary if I'm going to give of myself in the way that I want to, and I feel that I'm being called to. And so let me know, man, how has community maybe let you down in the past, or what have you done to make sure that community helps to prop you up, and that you're in communities that prop you up as opposed to communities that disappoint. Let me know in the comments. Happy to, if you have any advice on how I can become a better community member, or what you've done to become a better community member, please, please, please let me know in the comments. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.